Holy Happy Hour Batman. I on this show, Holy Happy Hour Batman. I'm Ben. I messed up my own script, everybody, this week. I'm so sorry. I just realized my script was messed up. So let me try that again. I'm Ben. Hi, I'm Ben. I am the host of this show, Holy Happy Hour Batman, and on this show, I'm joined by heroes of the gaming and geek world to talk about life, faith, spirituality, game design, philosophy, TTRPGs, the TTRPG industry, whatever else comes up, honestly, when we talk and interview guests here. All kinds of stuff comes up. Sometimes we talk about football, which we did last week a little bit. Anyway, this week, though, I am joined by game designer and podcaster Kat McDonald. Kat designs games for Peach Garden Games and is currently crowdfunding Roar to Heaven, which is a Blazing Hymn actual play podcast. So Blazing Hymn is a Lumen game, and then this is from the itch of Blazing Hymn that I'm about to read from, inspired by Neon Genesis Evangelion. I don't know if that's how you actually say that. It's an action-heavy TTRPG. Like I said, it's a Lumen game, Lumen SRD game. It takes you to a future where music is humanity's only weapon against the armies of heaven. Will yours be a song of pride, of violence, of regret? You build a hymnal unit, a music-powered anti-angel battlesuit, and you take on missions to protect humanity from destruction. Obviously, this is the perfect game to talk about in Holy Happy Hour. So I'm excited that Kat's joining me today to talk about it, and we'll have them on in just a moment here. So stick around, bring your questions to the chat. We're going to be having a good time chatting here. A few things before we get into the show. Holy Happy Hour Batman is a production of allportsopen.com. Check out our website for our lineup of podcasts and streams, sharing, making, and talking about great stories with shows like hit horror audio drama Weeping Cedars, and my own teen superhero show, a Masks actual play podcast, Delinquent Comics. I have one thing I do want to tell you all folks about because I'm excited. On Christmas Day, we will release on the Delinquent Comics feed our Villain Holiday Takeover special episode with guest GM Jeff Stormer. He ran a holiday Christmas game of Mission Accomplished, his TTRPG about office meetings and super spies office meetings, but instead we played as super villains trying to steal Christmas. If you are a Patreon backer of the All Ports Open Network, you can actually listen to that episode now. For everyone else, today dropped in the Delinquent Comics feed Vega Rising issue 8, but on Christmas Day you'll be able to listen to our Villain Holiday Takeover episode. It was raucously funny. The band Creed comes up in it far more than you could ever imagine. It was very fun. It was very fun. So huge thanks to Jeff Stormer for coming on that show. And that's a Christmas gift for you all on December 25th. So, okay. There is no Monday night stream that after of the on the All Ports Open channel after this show. We usually raid into the Monday night show. There is no Monday night show today. Yeah, I don't know. Go play some Halo or something after the show. I don't know. That might be what I'm doing. Anyway, before we get into our interview with Kat, it is happy hour. I do have a drink up on the screen. I want to tell you a little bit about this. Josh is in the chat, and he just told me that is what I'm doing, which is playing Halo after this. But, okay, so the drink on the screen is called Blazing Passion. As we'll talk to Kat about in a moment, Kat requested a spicy drink, and this is indeed a spicy passion fruit drink. So I wanted it to be both blazing and about passion. So I used passion fruit because I thought those fit Blazing Hymn well. So you can see it's sort of a passion fruit margarita, basically. You can salt a glass. Then it's tequila, orange liqueur, passion fruit syrup, lime juice, jalapeno that you muddle into it with Angostura bitters. It's sort of your classic 1 part sour, 2 part sweet, 3 part strong, 4 part weak. So you just basically muddle the jalapeno coins, make sure you take the seeds out. With Angostura bitters and the passion fruit syrup, and then you add the lime juice and the other stuff, and you shake it all up, pour it into your glass. Now, I did say here to light it on fire only do this with the utmost care and caution. Do it only responsibly. I'm not responsible for you lighting yourself on fire, so maybe just imagine it and don't actually try it unless you're experienced with fire. And so basically, if you do want to light it on fire, what you do is you need some sort of grain alcohol or high proof rum or something like that, overproof something. You take half a lime wedge, you put some of that in there, you put it on top of the glass, and you light it on fire. Just be very, 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 very careful if you are going to do that. And always drink responsibly. So that's our drink this week, Blazing Passion. As always, I have a rule. If you drink it, if you try it, you got to tell me about it. And so make sure you tweet at us. I will be posting the recipe card for this on Twitter after the show. So it's not up there right now like it usually is, but it will be up. The recipe card is done. You can I'll be posting it after the show. You can also go to the All Open Network Discord channel where I will post it in there as well. Okay. Ooh, let's bring Kat on the show now and chat. I'm very excited about Kat coming on. So here we go. Kat, welcome to Holy Happy Hour Batman.
Hi. Delighted to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just drinking a G&T and there's muddling involved. I'm so impressed.
Well, yeah, there's muddling involved. But I was trying to think of like what's the best way. So what kind of spicy drinks do you like to drink, by the way?
In my bar days, I did have some bar days. My favorite thing was Prairie Fires.
Okay, I'm not sure if I know what that is actually.
It's a shot of vodka or tequila and Tabasco.
Okay.
Because I was very into expressions of machismo in my 20s, specifically into beating men at them. And so, like, my greatest joy was watching someone sputter their way through a shot I've taken a dozen times because I was a little sadistic in my 20s.
I see. So, yeah, I thought of different ways to spice up the drink, right? Like, Tabasco sauce would be one way, and it wouldn't be bad. But I ended up going with the jalapeno coins. And
I love that.
And, yeah, four's a little spicy. It should have a nice jalapeno taste to it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm also a Canadian, so I drink spicy Caesars all the time.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Definitely don't know what that is.
It's a Bloody Mary, but instead of tomato juice, you use tomato clam cocktail.
Really?
And people very regularly put Tabasco and spicy pickles and a lot of spicy things in there.
Yeah, I do like Bloody Marys a lot. So we chatted about drinks, which sometimes happens on the show after the drink recipe. Oftentimes, actually, it doesn't. So we got to do some drink chatter. So I don't know, the passion fruit. If you have to like passion fruit, obviously, to like the Blazing Passion. Not everyone does, but and also not everyone has passion fruit syrup. You could theoretically use some sort of other passion fruit. Like you could get like passion fruit. I don't know if they sell juice. I don't know. There's other ways you could do it without the syrup if you don't have access to this passion fruit syrup.
I live pretty close to an Asian market, and I virtually guarantee I can get passion fruit juice there at least.
Oh, probably. Yeah. You can find all kinds of stuff you never expect there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one super close to us too. All right. So let's talk about, let's talk a little bit about a couple of things, but I want to talk about your crowdfunding right now. So maybe we should start with that.
Yes.
Tell us about the crowdfunding project. Yeah.
We are doing an actual play podcast of Blazing Him called Roar to Heaven. I have already got my cast. They're perfect. They're flawless. Not a single one of them has anything wrong with them. Not even Dylan. I adore them. And we went through a casting process. We've got a gorgeous team of forever GMs who are finally getting to sit in the player seat. It's going to be 12 episodes of audio anime. And if we make our higher funding goals, we'll even be able to get an original OST, which I want very badly. We've also got a parallel itch funding campaign going on right now because Kickstarter announced its pivot to blockchain 2 days after I started my campaign.
Yeah.
Love that.
And the internet went crazy.
Love that. It was wonderful. I had a great time. Yeah. I didn't melt down and literally cry. Why would that have happened?
Right.
So if you want the digital rewards for Roar to Heaven, you can find them on the Peach Garden Games itch site.
Yeah, I'm gonna
that'll go toward.
No, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That'll go toward helping Roar to Heaven become a reality, as well as the Kickstarter will. So if you want to support us, but understandably don't want to touch Kickstarter right now, we've got you covered.
Yeah, I just linked the itch page. And I will link the Kickstarter page too.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is the campaign going?
It's going all right. The math says we're going to fund. I'm hoping. I am completely anxious. I'm a mess of anxiety, but it's going pretty well. I'm just watching it right now because my mother sent me a text saying that she didn't know how to back it, and it seems like she hasn't figured it out yet, and that's okay.
So yeah, watch that number carefully for the moment Mom donates, right?
Exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, so that's so 12 episodes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the cast?
Yes, absolutely. We have got Kendrick. They are the GM of the podcast Tales Yet Told. Kendrick is hilarious, effervescent, sparkling, and can turn on a dime to serious drama in a heartbeat. Genuinely a joy to play with. We have got Jordan from the upcoming, every time I do an interview, Jordan, I forget what it's called. Forgive me. It is, Jordan has a lot of things on the go, including but not limited to an upcoming Kids on Brooms AP.
Cool.
And I'm doing a quick scroll and I'm not here. It is from Bone Rollers. It is Don't Cast, Don't Tell. I got it. Wonderful. We have got my GM from the podcast Edge of the World, my darling Dylan, who I adore and who doesn't have any flaws. And Jordan, I was talking about what Jordan was doing, but Jordan is like detailed and like has a really quiet but very complete understanding of the character and the scene. That's a delight to listen to. And my dear Dylan has really powerful command of both in combat and out of combat role play. Very, just really striking. And of course, we have my co-host, my co-producer, Aaron Cerise from Super Idols RPG. And Aaron,
friends of Delinquent Comics. Sorry, we're friends. Delinquent Comics is friends with Super Idols. So
yes, and okay, Aaron is on my show. Aaron is one of my players, but is also helping me as a producer. I don't know how I'd get this done without her. And Aaron is just like so knowledgeable and so willing to roll with it and absolutely playing into and playing with people's expectations in a way that is a delight. My cast is perfect.
That's
I
awesome.
adore them.
Awesome. That's really exciting. So, so you wrote Blazing Him, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I did.
When did you write Blazing Him? I actually forgot to look up when it came out.
Shortly after the Lumen engine came out. So over the summer, I think it was released in early June.
Yeah.
I put birthday wishes to Marlo in it. Marlo's birthday is June 1st.
Okay. It's such a unique concept for, I know it has inspiration from anime, but but it is such a unique sounding like setting and like concept. The idea of like it being him, him fueled. So yeah, so I guess like tell us a little bit about how the game plays, and then we can kind of go.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you know anything about Lumen games, Lumen is primarily a combat engine.
Yeah.
It's about fast-paced, fluid, aggressive, power fantasy combat.
Yeah.
And I really just wanted to play Symphogear because I love Symphogear very much. And that's an anime about people wielding these like mech suits that are fueled by music, and they sing in combat. And
okay. Gotcha.
It's got a gorgeous OST and I adore it. And so I really wanted to make just a really transparent Symphogear fan game. But then I was like, I can't literally just recreate the enemies from Symphogear.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me forever to hit upon angels. And just like these weird, abstract, very alien, very be not afraid angels as the opponents in Blazing Him. And that was kind of when the game itself came together. I didn't answer your question, I've just realized.
That's okay.
So basically what you do is you choose a class, you choose what kind of weapon your hymnal wields, and you choose from a list of powers, and you choose a list of songs. When you start combat, you choose one of your songs. Maybe you're singing your violent song or your love song, and those are going to give you additional powers and change the way you play the game. And then in combat, you just go nuts with your powers. You just go completely nuts. And you try and rescue civilians from the angels and try to keep the levels of condemnation, which is an airborne neurotoxin, down to an acceptable level. Because if it gets too high, both you and the civilians are going to be in a lot of trouble. And out of combat, you role play.
Sure.
You just do it. There's no role play rules.
Okay.
There's none.
That's interesting. So it's basically combat rules, and then everything else just sort of you just role play it.
Freeform. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, you said you stumbled on angels. Like where did the angels come from? Like when did you stumble on that? How did you stumble on that?
I'm virtually certain that it happened because everyone else who is on the Edge of the World crew is just obsessed with Evangelion. They love it. Mostly Bill just likes saying get in the robot to people, but we have varying degrees of loving it. And so when I was thinking about it, I think someone must have mentioned it in the Discord, and I thought, oh, Evangelion. Because the thing that really appealed to me about Eva when I was a teenager was the fact that the enemies were angels, or that they were called angels, and that they had come to destroy us. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I would crib that from Evangelion, and instead of making the angels like giant kaiju, I made them like a horde, and kind of brought the battle down to a smaller micro level than the macro level you see in Evangelion.
Does the game does it tell you, does it tell the GM or the player or the players, this is why the angels are here to destroy, or is it more up to sort of maybe you never even find out, or maybe you decide for your own home game?
It's never spelled out.
Yeah.
It's not spelled out because I think if you're going to be playing a campaign, those are the ideas a GM is going to want to play with. Mm-hmm. The idea of why the angels have come to destroy us. And if they decide these aren't really angels, that's their story to tell, and I want them to tell it. Yeah.
But I like the idea that they're angels in the sense of the sense that the Bible actually describes angels as in these shocking, fear-inducing, crazy things that and I love that idea of them as being these there's a word I'm looking for that I'm not finding, but
eldritch.
Yeah, that exactly. I love that idea. The idea that then it turns out, oh no, they're here to destroy us is so terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah, it's such an interesting reversal, right? The idea I did an entire class in seminary on angels, actually. Angels. Ooh. Well, it was in angels and demons, I guess. But we really we did do the devil. But we basically traced the concept of angels from its earliest days, and then through from its earliest Hebrew, as just simply a messenger, someone who shows up and talks to Abraham, just to deliver a message basically from God. This idea of a messenger through through art and music, tracing the idea of how the concept of an angel, develops over time. I forget why I started saying that.
Oh no, but that's really incredible though. You're making me want to go to seminary because I've done so much reading on angels and demons just casually for funsies. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Is it really?
So yeah, I love them. I wrote a game that's not currently on my itch anymore called All That I Am.
Okay.
Which is about the opposite. It is about being a debtor who has sold your soul to a devil, and the powers that it gives you, and the ways in which it catches up with you, and the ways in which your humanity erodes. And that's something that I'd like to rework because I did some stuff with it with the concept of madness that I would like to kind of rework with a little bit more of an eye toward being affirming toward people with mental illness, as opposed to
Yeah.
Just the stock TTRPG route.
Mm-hmm.
I can do better than I did, so I'm gonna. But
Yeah, that's something that's always tough. It's always tough to know when to, you know what, I'm going to rework this and retool it so I can, because I think it could be better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, the reversal of the angels being the threat in this game. But I know that has some background for you as well, also, like some
It
life
does.
background. Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, indeed. I was raised quite Roman Catholic. I'm not going to say very, but I am going to say quite.
Okay.
I went to Catholic school.
Oh, that's quite Roman Catholic.
Exactly. Like, I went to Catholic school, but not the kind that has nuns who hate you. So,
Okay.
quite not very. And the problem with Catholic schools, I think, and the problem with religious education of children, is that I feel the same way about religion as I do about sex, which is to say that it is a great thing for an adult who decides they want it in their life, but it's not something that children should be pressured into making decisions about until they're ready to really think about the decisions they're making. And because I grew up in an extremely religious environment while I was trying to figure out who I was as a person, trying to figure out my own morals, my own ethics, and being surrounded by orthodoxy just kind of festered in me as this feeling of incorrectness. And most of the people that I've talked to who went to Catholic school kind of felt the same way, that at a time when they were figuring themselves out, everywhere they looked, they've heard that they were wrong. There was something wrong with them. And so I was, I'm not going to say traumatized, because a lot of people who go through the very Catholic end of the Catholic school get traumatized worse than I did. But it was something that really did fester in me, the notion of religion as a source of fear and as a source of condemnation and as a threat. And that's obviously not the way it should be. It's something that can be tremendously affirming for people. But when a person's first developing, who knows what happens in their will brains.
I think that it also probably greatly depends, right, on the way you present religion to children, the way you teach religion to children.
Yeah.
And we were we were joking around about this because we were at church. We have a game club at our church on Saturdays, and we do TTRPGs, and we were playing Dread, and there was like a Jonah storybook.
Nice.
And we made jokes about how I bet that kids Jonah storybook doesn't tell the atrocities of the Ninevites, that the real reason Jonah didn't want God to forgive them. There's and when you have a kid's Bible, I've seen really fair criticism of I gave my kids there's one that the Lutheran publishers do, and it's the Bible stories geared toward children with pictures. And so it's geared towards inclusivity and things like that. It's geared to trying to depict them in a certain way that's better than, it's not whitewashed. It's not but at the same time it is in the sense that it isn't telling, it's telling a very cutesy version of these stories that's not accurate at all to what they are. It doesn't teach anything about the actual nature of scripture or any of that stuff to children. So I personally, we baptize children in our tradition, and and that's for me, the idea of raising children I have not personally have a problem with raising children in my worldview, because I'm already going to do that with my kids. I'm already going to raise them in my ethical worldview.
And that's a natural thing for a person to want to do.
Right,
that's
right.
completely normal.
Right. But how you do it and how you do it well, I don't know. I don't know that I see it done well by almost any Christians that I know of out there. So Christians just do a really bad job of it, I think, and teaching Christianity in general. I mean,
I used to love Bible stories when I was little. I used to love reading Bible stories. I still kind of do, to be honest with you, because I love ancient fiction and ancient religious texts. And I love stories from the ancient world, and the Bible's full of really beautiful ones. And I've loved the Bible since I was a little kid. And I think it's the fact that I was raised around orthodoxy and raised around the our modern society's baggage with the tales of the ancient world was in my life very damaging for me. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to, like you mentioned, like you want to raise children with your values and ethics because you believe in them and you believe it's the right way to live. Obviously, that's what everyone wants, is to raise their children to do it right, to be good people.
Right.
But at the same time, how do you do that in a way that respects their right to become the person they're going to be on their own? Mm-hmm. And that's hard. I don't have a clean answer for that. Right. I don't have kids.
Right.
but it's that's, I think, if it helps, I think that the people who grapple with that question are already doing a better job with it than the people who don't.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to think, I hope so. I hope so.
Well, it means that you respect their right to become the person they're going to be.
Right.
Like, enough to consider it. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, I've had tough conversations with my own children about religion, and my oldest child is, I would say, a religious skeptic. She's very skeptical when it comes to anything religion. She's my oldest, and so she was raised in church and raised as like PK for until a certain age. Really, she lives most of the time with her mom, so she's not with us most of the time. But she is the most skeptical child to religion I know, and we had really hard conversations about it, you know. I feel like all I can do in that case is present to her, you know, where I'm coming from. I try to, and again, like you said, give her the space to be herself. And you know, like, because asking questions is so good. Like, I want her to ask the questions. Like, it's I guess one of the ways it goes wrong, right, is when you tell kids questions aren't welcome.
Exactly. And there's such a big difference between, I find at least, people who have come to their faith through genuine adult contemplation and thought, and people who have come to it because no alternatives were ever presented to them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was just listening to earlier. I was listening to Elizabeth Brunig, who is a journalist who writes for The Atlantic. I was listening to her talk about how she converted to Roman Catholicism when she was a theology student at Cambridge for her, and so she was grew up Methodist in the United States, and then converted to Roman Catholicism, and she writes a lot about forgiveness and reconciliation, and she converted basically, like, she talks a lot in her writing and stuff, interviews that she does about the ethics of forgiveness and how forgiveness is the most difficult and important thing that, like, Christianity forces us to, you know, if following Christianity forces us to forgive, like, that's like the whole thing, right? That's basically the whole thing, or it's supposed to be. Well, I was thinking about,
it's meant to be the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about that, you know, like this idea of, like, you know, that Christianity is supposed to be about forgiving people, and yet people get raised in it and have the complete opposite experience, or the, you know, like, or like, you know, not even just like not being great at forgiving, but like the opposite, like, can be some of the most least forgiving people, can be some of the least forgiving, least graceful, least merciful people out there. You can, like, growing up in a Roman Catholic school, you know, like, is the idea, like, you know, it should be this experience of being raised like, oh, I'm taught the ethics of Jesus, and I'm taught to forgive my, you know, my neighbors and turn the other cheek or whatever. And I bet it's a completely different experience, you know, in reality.
Yeah. And that's like a lot of what comes out in Blazing Him is the notion of the stuff that isn't about forgiveness, the stuff that isn't about ethics, this faceless threat that is watching and has judged you unworthy and will destroy you.
Yeah.
The fact that the toxin is named condemnation is one of the few deliberate metaphorical choices I made in that game, because it's anime inspired, so you just name things after whatever sounds cool. But
yeah,
but condemnation was very much as like, yes, it is through acts of condemnation that we make the environment more toxic. When we do it, when the angels do it, when we condemn others, we are raising the toxicity of the environment and making it so nothing will grow there. And so that was the one deliberate choice I made.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, yeah, condemnation. It's so interesting, the idea that, yeah, because that's talk about being the exact opposite, like the idea of a faceless, you know, some faceless thing that has judged you unworthy and wants to destroy you. It's like so opposite of what, like, like what
Yeah.
that of what Christianity is actually, which is, you know, this idea that like a tremendously loving God can be twisted into that is so tragic, honestly, for me anyway, as a religious person. Yeah, who cares? I mean, and I'm not talking about you doing it in the game. I mean, I'm talking about having the life experience of being treated a certain way by religion is what I mean.
Absolutely.
Turning into an RPG is awesome. But, you know,
and I know a lot of people who come from similar backgrounds and who have this similar feeling, because for some reason people prioritize teaching adherence to societal rules and societal rules over the ethics and the values of love that are genuinely central to scripture. And so, like, that's it is tremendously twisted, but it is the vision of the church that a lot of, especially marginalized people, see.
Exactly.
Which is a bummer, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, it's an understatement. but yeah, I mean, like you hit the nail on the head with the idea of like teaching societal rules, right? Like turning Christianity into religion. You know, that's and then when it gets turned, and this is something I wrestle with because I work for a church. You know, I work for a church as institution, and I think about how, like, well, by institutionalizing church, you know, what we did, and is the danger of doing that, is making it a force that helps society exist. Like, you know, it's like it's no longer like teaching an ethical, you know, ethics and ethical worldview, and it's turning it into like, okay, we're going to teach society. And you see this in the New Testament, right? Like, very quickly the church turns towards like, okay, and here's how a husband and a wife should be. You know what I mean? Like, that's not first generation Christians, that's like second and third generation Christians saying, like, you know, like, here now we're going to uphold society, we're going to survive in society. And you know, when you institutionalize church, I think that's the danger, right? It's like enforcing society norms, the societal rules.
Yeah. Another kind of area that I focused on for a while was Renaissance history.
Okay.
And you can't make any reading of Renaissance history without being like, oh, church as institution is a different beast. Like, church of institution is its own thing. And like, obviously, when you're talking Renaissance history, you're talking the Catholic Church,
right?
But that's because that was the Renaissance. But when the church is a societal institution that has its own power, that acts to maintain its own power, where does scripture begin and the well-being of the institution end?
Yeah,
and it's unsettling for a religious person to read Renaissance history because there's so many things that we take as like religious law that were like political decrees made by the church in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Like, it's a deeply unsettling experience.
Also, as Americans, we like, because I was just reading about something that has to do with, like, you know, actually, I'll tell you, it has to do with COVID, right? Yeah. So, like, we have not been, in our tradition, we do communion every week, just like Roman Catholics do, in the Episcopal Church. But we, you know, usually we have one common cup, right, that everyone drinks from. And because of COVID, we haven't been doing it, although we did just reintroduce it this past week. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. We did reintroduce doing common cup. Our bishop gave us permission to do that. But I was reading about this from an English context, like is in the Church of England, where there is no separation of church and state. And there it's freaking the law. It's laws. They're laws. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no separation of church and state. So, like, the rules governing, like, how you do things like communion and things like that are like, you know, this article I'm reading is, like, referencing, like, 16th century, 17th century laws and stuff passed by Parliament, and this act and that act, and like whether or not they can do the Common Cup now or stop using it or reintroduce it or whatever is actually a matter of law there, which is so crazy from an American viewpoint. I'm like, this is nuts. Like,
it's wild.
It's nuts. So yeah, I can't even begin to just too American, I suppose. I can't.
Yeah.
The idea of like it being the law is so crazy to me.
One thing I always used to say growing up was that separation of church and state was not meant to protect the state from the church. It was meant to protect the church from the state. It's just like the ways in which power dynamics and laws and governance impact the sincere expression of faith are honestly real scary. Like, it forms an unhealthy marriage that I think is yucky to look at.
Yeah. Oh, and plus just like, I don't know, the like article, like referencing this law and that law, like talking about, I'm just like, man, you have your head so far up your ass you can't see the light of day. like we've really lost the plot here when you're having to like, you know, like it's like we're talking about trying to keep people from being sick, right? Like in a pandemic, and it's like, you know, well, so what does the science say about the Common Cup? Okay, like I don't know. I get that it's an important theological matter too. It is like it is important, and it is part of my tradition. The idea that we don't withhold, because the Roman Catholic Church withheld the wine for so long from the laity, and so it was so important for Anglicans in the Anglican tradition to like not do that, you know, to have the, so I get it. I get that it's really important to people, and I get why, but like, yeah, you do things during extreme times, right? You know, like
exactly. And it's about keeping people alive, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the importance of things that are symbolic and resonant and meaningful in people's hearts and in their beliefs. But this is about staying alive.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, so we're speaking of losing the plot, but I want to talk more about the game. I want to talk more about the game in the podcast too. But tell me about the idea of music being a part of the game and the idea of hymns. Like, where did that just come from? Is that the anime inspiration? And what's that look like?
Well, part of it was the anime inspiration, because Symphogear is about people singing to activate battle armor, and I just love it.
Yeah.
I just genuinely love that stupid, horny anime. It's not good. I can't recommend it in good conscience, but I love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I hit upon the enemies being these condemning angels, I was like, well, my mother sang in a choir all my life. Like, I know a lot of hymns. And that was something that I hit on very much, is kind of like the intersection of my religious upbringing and the concept of music, because like, it's weird because my feelings about the church are one thing, but because my mother would always sing hymns around the house, like, hymns are always a different matter for me. The only Christmas songs I like are the old ones. I don't
really?
like Jingle Bells. I only like Adeste Fideles. Must have it in Latin.
Interesting. So no, wait a second, but like, what about when you say old? So you mean old? But what about like no like White Christmas or any of that stuff? No,
none of it.
Interesting.
No. I like God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen is a favorite of mine. Obviously, O Come All Ye Faithful, although I prefer it in Latin. Like, old ones. And these are songs I grew up listening to. And so, and weirdly, like, my mother is never a particularly judgmental person and was never very harsh or very, very strict. Religion was always kind of a source of comfort and community for my mother. And so, like, weirdly, even when my feelings about religion were at their most complicated, it never really extended to the music because it was so associated with my mother. And so, like, I still have favorite hymns.
Really?
I still do, yeah.
Am I allowed to put you on the spot and ask you for some favorite hymns?
Ubi Caritas.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Is so beautiful.
Is.
Holy Darkness is a favorite of mine. I like really somber ones, which is strange, but like slow,
I do too.
Somber, melodic ones are really beautiful to me.
Yeah. Oh no, I really like somber, and I like somber renditions of hymns and Christmas hymns too. So like any kind of sad sounding rendition of a Christmas hymn, I'm a sucker for. I'm a softie for.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff.
there's a Pedro the Lion version of I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day that is really, really, really good.
Ooh.
It sounds like he's getting ready to cry. It's like,
yes, please.
It's so good. Speaking of somebody that was religious and then left the church, left Christianity after struggling and wrestling and all that. Pedro the Lion is a good example of that. But that rendition of that song is hauntingly beautiful. But
I love that.
So yeah, that's such a cool idea of like activating your armor with a hymn, and the idea that like functionally, so you said you choose a certain number of hymns for when you character create,
and that's yes indeed. And the only thing about the songs is just like descriptor, song, and then powers.
Okay.
So when I like Song of Violence, some of my players are like, I have a heavy metal song that absolutely fits Song of Violence for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that players are completely free to imagine this as any song they know.
That's
and because
awesome.
it's called a hymnal unit, so for me, there's at least a chance that one of these songs is Ubi Caritas. But
yeah. Right. Well, you said a song of love. You said a song of love before, so there you go. It could be a song of love. So do you basically get to like kind of make up the effect of what the song does too, like, or is there like a list to choose from for like the power?
There's a list of effects.
Yeah.
So, for example, why did I not have the game? Oh, I did have the game open. What a good interviewee I am.
Oh, it's okay.
Hey, chat, congratulate me, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm assuming you did it. So the hopeful song, for example, has 2 role play questions attached to it, which are what gets you through the day and do you genuinely really believe in hope? And the abilities are you can spend 2 gain to increase another character's HP by 1, and you automatically succeed on evacuation rolls. And the duet power, if 2 people are singing a hopeful song, they can remove 50% condemnation and apply a barrier to every hymnal and civilian in the scene. But that's what the hopeful song says. So if you have a song in your playlist about hope, perfect. If you have a favorite hymn that is about hope, absolutely, that's it. And that's, I really left a lot of things up to audience interpretation because I think music is so personal for people.
Yeah.
And personal and powerful that I wanted people to be able to like, yes, this is the heavy metal slugger of my dreams. This is the like punk rock princess of my dreams, or like, this is the somber religious battle mech of my dreams. These are all equally possible.
Yeah, and I like the idea of like bringing this to a game table. I can totally 100% picture like, you know, you're sitting around the game table with this game and everybody has their phone, right? So, you know, like boom, I hit play on Spotify when I use a certain power and play the song, you know, that I have in mind. And being able to like let different people do that that's a really cool thing that you can do. And that's possible, you know, even more so now because all of us carry around smart devices, you know, and all the time. Yeah. Oh, someone did say preparedness for the win, by the way, in the chat.
I knew I could count on you.
So there you go.
But I was, as I mentioned in my cursed engagement tweet earlier today, which you saw, at the end of the day, Blazing Hymn is really about just like your own passion and your own like self-expression against these external ideas of condemnation and fear and oppression. And so I wanted the musical aspect of the game to be liberating for people and to give them the freedom to be like, no, this is who I am. This is who my character is. This is what makes us feel powerful in the face of a world that sometimes tells us we shouldn't exist.
So, have you all actually recorded the Road to Heaven show yet, or is that part of the funding because it hasn't funded yet?
We haven't recorded yet. We've only recorded session 0.
Okay.
So I've met the characters.
Yeah.
I've talked to my cast about the characters, but we haven't made them do anything yet.
I was curious if there was going to be any singing on the show.
I know at least one of my cast members is going to refuse.
Okay.
That's okay. But if we make enough money for an OST,
Yeah.
I'm going to bully Kathleen into letting me do a vocal track. I'll
Okay.
do it. I'll absolutely do it. And I can't be stopped. I can be stopped, but I will do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the OST. So how much funding do you need for that stretch goal? Is that a stretch goal?
Oh, golly. That is a big
Is it
old
a big
stretch
one?
goal.
Yeah.
That's $23K.
Okay.
But basically what's going to happen is when everything from our base goal to our first stretch goal is going to my cast.
Okay.
I want to pay them too. Once we hit the goal of $100 per episode for everybody in the cast, the overflow goes to Kathleen for custom music. And if we hit 23K, that's a full soundtrack.
Oh, you have 15 days to go. It's currently at 3,365 of 4,936 goal. That sounds with 67 backers. That's a lot of backers, by the way.
Yeah,
That's really solid. That's a lot of it's gonna back. I mean, it's gonna fund. It's gonna fund. There's almost no way, right? Like it's definitely gonna fund. But whether you'll get to the 20,000, we got to hype up some. How important that soundtrack is. You need that OST.
Kathleen is the composer behind the award-winning podcast Sword of Symphonies. I'm the GM behind it. It's a great podcast. But but I can't keep asking Kathleen to work for free. I can't. I adore her and I want to pay her. She's incredible. So I've got a composer lined up. She's amazing. I just got to pay her. I just got to give her money. Mm-hmm. And it should be 68 backers, Mommy.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, your mom will push you over the edge.
Like, I am, my mother and I are very close. I adore my mother. After I left the church, I am something of a pagan. And my mother has handled this like an absolute champ. Genuinely, we get together for Yule dinners now. And
oh, really?
She writes Happy Yule and bright blessings on my cards. One of the first things she did was Google pagan Wiccan Yule traditions when she found out that I was pagan. It was like, oh, you're really very dedicated to making me feel welcome and happy in my new faith. And that was
that's
my
really
mom's
wonderful.
the best.
That's really
I
cool.
love my mommy. Yeah. She's perfect. She doesn't know how to work Kickstarter, but she's flawless.
She'll figure it out.
She'll figure it out.
She's got 15 days to figure it out. So
she's got time.
Yeah, she's got some time. Yeah, yeah. But that is really beautiful that she would be open-minded enough to be like, I'm going to look up these traditions that aren't mine and celebrate them with you.
Yeah.
So what does that? Can I ask you? What does that look like? What does it like to celebrate Yule?
Well, mostly we just me and my mom and my sister get together and exchange gifts in a Tim Hortons. That's not necessarily pagan, but it is very Canadian. But my mother found a recipe for this simmering potpourri that you put on the stove that has spices and juniper berries and stuff in it. And she found it on Google and she makes it for me almost every year. And it's my favorite gift that I get because it's this is a sign that that you're really invested in celebrating this with me.
That's really cool.
I've still got a little Christmas tree. Yeah.
You say you still got a little Christmas tree?
I still have a little Christmas tree, but it's just the kind that's a foot tall and has fiber optic lights in it. Mm-hmm. But it's my little apartment buddy.
Does it look like an actual Christmas tree? Or is it one of the ones that has the lights that it looks like it's from a designer catalog? It doesn't look like any real tree in existence. It's not green. It's not, or is it an actual meant to look like a Christmas tree? Is it green? It looks like a Christmas tree.
It's green, but it is a cheap enough one that it doesn't look a ton like a real tree.
Okay, but not by design,
not
cheap.
by design, by virtue of cheapness.
Yes. I was at my own church musician's house for his holiday party, and he has like this designer tree that doesn't look like any real tree at all, and it looks like it just came from the back from it looks like it looks like it should be the cover of a catalog. You know what I mean? Like it's like the lights are built into it. I don't even know how to describe this thing because it's like white and spindly and like not. It doesn't look like any real tree that's ever grown in nature. But it's beautiful though. I mean, like it's the kind of thing that if I were a well, I should be careful what I say here.
Oh no!
In a different life where I would be, you know. I won't. Everything coming to my head is stuff I don't want to say publicly on the show, so I won't say anything else. But it's certainly not any. It doesn't look like a Christmas tree in that sense, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think this is a hard thing to phrase, isn't it? And it's not even like I'm thinking offensive things. It's just like there's tradition and there's aesthetics, and sometimes they're together and sometimes they're apart, and you have to choose one.
Yeah. There you go.
And yeah,
exactly.
So, I'm also like a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to Christmas trees. I have a lot of fond memories of Christmas trees growing up. I was decorating one with my niece and nephew a couple weeks ago. Well, my nephew is 3, my niece is 5. So we didn't do a lot of tree decorating. My nephew helped me wind the Christmas lights around the tree. He's 3. He did a great job. Good job, little guy. And my niece had a plan for the garlands. And so I was like, you know what? I respect your plan. I respect your plan, Angel. Go for it. Meanwhile, my sister, who is very much more focused on the aesthetics, is just wincing and cringing and just like, no, oh, not like that, no.
That's funny.
It was a wonderful time for me, maybe less so for her.
What was the outcome of the plans? How did it come out? Did it come out?
It was a disaster.
It was a disaster. Yeah.
Oh, it was a disaster. Sorry, Angel. If you are watching, why are you watching this, Angel? If you are watching, I thought your plan was a good one, and I'm sorry that your mom didn't like it. That's actually been the weirdest thing for me about Blazing Him, is because Angel has always been my nickname for my 5-year-old niece.
That's fascinating. So, yeah, you made the villain of your game the thing you affectionately call your niece.
Yeah.
A 5-year-old.
My niece is a demon. She's genuinely an absolute terror. I adore her. I think she's perfect, and I hope she never changes. But so there's part of me that just like, well, actually, an eldritch being from beyond who's come to destroy us mere humans
fits.
Kind of does fit her a little bit.
Yeah.
Just an unknowable mystery creature who loves rainbows and is here to ruin. No, that could be her.
I have a 5-year-old, and my 5-year-old son is terror incarnate, I think. So I get it.
The worst thing about my niece and nephew, who I adore, I love them both, is that my nephew adores his big sister. His big sister's the center of his world. Has been ever since he was born.
Yeah.
So she wants to do terrible things because she's 5.
Yeah.
He wants to do terrible things because he's 3. And he wants to do anything he sees her doing. Mm-hmm. So they're just this, and she thinks it's hilarious when he does horrible things. So it's just this never-ending feedback loop that spirals into chaos.
Yeah.
It's, for somebody who doesn't have to discipline them, hilarious.
Yes, exactly. When it's not your responsibility to deal with it.
Auntie Cat, it's a delight.
Yeah, exactly. So our terror this year has been that our dog. We have a 1-year-old, a dog who's 1 year old in like 2 months. Like she was born in October. We got her as a Christmas gift last year. She was our pandemic Christmas puppy. You know, she has decided that her favorite thing to do is destroy ornaments from the Christmas tree.
That'll happen.
See, I'm glancing to the side because I'm looking at it because it's like thinner at the bottom now because one, she stole a bunch of ornaments from the bottom of the tree, and two, we had to move a bunch up to the top of the tree from the bottom because she started destroying the ornaments.
No.
Yeah, so she got one today that was this nest ornament. It looked like a bird's nest, and it was like made of like sticks. It's beautiful, or was. It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
but that thing had so many little. My carpet is like covered in these tiny little sticks, and I can't get out of the carpet because she like just decimated it. It was like the wreckage of Christmas, and so we tried to find ways to block her from the tree, but she can get like over furniture. If we're not here, you know, there's like no, like I don't want this poor dog to die eating an ornament. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and they're smarter than you want them to be. Mm-hmm. They're not like dogs are not that clever, but they're clever enough to get into trouble, and I love that about them.
She's a chocolate lab too, so she's pretty smart. I mean, labs are pretty smart.
Oh yeah, I grew up with a lab husky cross.
Oh really?
Smartest dog I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
I learned to walk holding onto that dog's back. Absolute saint. Good dog.
Oh.
Yeah, I love animals kind of in general. Yeah. I'm a big animal lover.
Yeah.
Hopefully your pup learns to stop chewing on the ornaments.
I think she's mad at us when we leave, and because I think she's
baby.
learning to take it out on us by like, you know, because for a long time she didn't chew. She stopped chewing the shoes. She stopped for a long time. Lately, we come home, she'll have pulled stuff out and made a wreckage. You know, and like I think she's mad that we're leaving, and she so we stopped crating her when we leave like a while ago because she was so well behaved, and now she's doing this to our stuff. And like if we go, like let's say we take her to my parents, right? We put her in my parents into a bedroom or whatever. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't do anything bad. She doesn't get into the stuff, destroy anything. She only does it at our house because she's mad at us, and I think she's trying to punish us.
Oh,
so
baby, no, you mustn't.
Yeah,
that's criminal.
So that's our Christmas tree threat this year. Is less so from our 5-year-old and more so from our dog who's trying to ruin Christmas. Or maybe she just hates Christmas. Maybe she hates
Christmas.
She's secretly the Grinch.
Secret Grinch. Took all the trappings. She took all the the only thing left was hooks and some wire. Dogs can't chew on hooks and wire.
No, that's the thing. I am worried that she's gonna hurt herself, but that's a whole nother. Yeah. So one of the things we usually talk about in the show early, because it's usually like kind of a conversation starter, but is usually like your TTRPG origin story. So like what is your TTRPG origin story? And feel free to tell it as complex or simple as you want, because it's kind of a big, broad question. But
I don't remember when I started playing TTRPGs. It was sometime in middle school, and it was because of my friend Mateo, because he got my sister and I into role-playing games.
Okay.
But I don't remember what that conversation was like. I remember that my first character was an elf bard. I still love playing bards. I love it. But I love them. But my story as a TTRPG designer was because a dear friend of mine was like, Kat, can you help me play test my game? Okay. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely fell in love with it. Huh. The notion that like you could make changes to the rules that would impact the changes people made in play.
Yeah.
And would change the choices people made was magical to me. This was back in high school. And so I quickly went from playtesting to helping my friend come up with solutions for problems we found in playtesting to being on board as part of the design team to eventually in my adulthood designing my own games. And it was just wonderful. It was the first exposure to the idea of the way people's behaviors and the rules of the game influence each other. Was through, and that's part of why like there's been a lot of discourse, not recently, but there was kind of over the summer about whether or not you should playtest games or whether it's mandatory to. And while I don't think it's mandatory because that's a privilege not everybody has, I do think it's a lot of fun and it's very worthwhile.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm playtesting a game right now called Broken. In fact, I meant to say this at the start of the show to the audience and forgot to, that I am playtesting it's a 2-player tragic romance game. It's basically a breakup game. And at the beginning of the game, you know that the last scene will be the breakup, and so you play out the story of a relationship from, like, basically it can be from the beginning. Like, it wouldn't theoretically have to be from the beginning, but you basically tell, like, you have 10 scenes of like this relationship, and then you always break up in the 10th scene. Anyway, I'm playtesting this game right now. And and I've been looking for playtesters, and it's interesting. I have seen some comments on, like, Discord forums and stuff about playtesting, and people saying, like, "Oh yeah, that's when my game started to change." Like, I didn't, it didn't really, we didn't really find the game or change the game until we started playtesting it. Yeah, so that's interesting. That I don't know. It just makes you think that's really interesting, because, like, the idea of, like, well, sometimes you do it and sometimes you don't. I've certainly talked to game designers on this show who say, yeah, I really wrote and released that game. We didn't play test it. Like you said, not everyone has the ability to do that necessarily.
Exactly. I love to play test. Especially since, like, I'm playing games with my friends. What more could I ask for?
Sure, yeah.
Sword of Symphonies is the playtest campaign of my adventure game, Heroic Chord. And if you listen to that podcast, you will be able to listen to the way that the game changes as I watch the decisions my party makes, as the way that we play the game for the podcast starts to influence the way I think the game should be played in general. I've had some really wonderful experiences playtesting. I can't recommend it enough, but at the same time, like, if you can't get people together, or maybe you're writing to a tight deadline, like, I'm not gonna look down on somebody for not playtesting. Like, well, it's not mandatory, but it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we have 2 playtest streams on our network. The show that's normally after this one on Mondays, and then and on Tuesdays, it's a horror game written by Josh Wise, my co-founder of our network. And that game I was in the first playtest, actual play of that, and that exists on the podcast Apon Plays. And the game now is so different than the game was then in so many ways, because there's all these playtests, and all the playtests have been for actual player stream, right? So there's 2 ongoing groups now, Monday and Tuesday, that playtest the game. And new versions of the rules are constantly coming. Josh is retooling the rules based on all the feedback from those players. It's just really interesting to see how much dramatically it's changed, and how it changes based on specific feedback from specific people. And all those people have had an input into the direction the game has gone in.
Absolutely. And the most, I think it's really interesting when you playtest a game for an audience.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way when I started Sword of Symphonies.
Yeah.
But I was like, I've refined Heroic Chord into a game that's almost kind of meant to be played for an audience. Like, it's built to be played dramatically in front of people, because that's how it was tested.
Right.
And that was something I didn't think I was doing, but that's how it went. And I'm glad. I like where the game is now, but it's kind of a weird side effect. So
it's also interesting. Sorry. Go.
You mentioned Broken in my cursed engagement tweet.
That's right. I did. I forgot about that. Yes, I did.
You didn't talk a great deal about it, though. Is it a solo game? Is it a duet game?
No, it's a duet game. So basically yes. So there are basically 2 ways you can play, and one of them is more dramatic than the other one. You bring 10 objects, maybe 5 each. Each player could bring 5 objects. So you bring 10 objects. You put them physically between the 2 of you at whatever game space you're going to be playing in, at the table or whatever. And you, at the end of at the beginning of every scene, you basically play out 10 scenes like memories from this relationship, which is ending at the end. And it's like you're kind of looking back. Each scene starts with one person saying, "Remember when," and then basically sets a scene. And then the other person says, "But you forgot about," and adds sort of a twist. So you don't really remember things exactly the same way. Some, just like in a real relationship, you don't always remember how things happen exactly the same way. So the person adds a complication or a twist to it. You have like in front of you have things about the on index cards. You write things about the relationship or the person you're attracted to or that you like about the relationship, and you put them in a stack in a certain order, and then every scene you're moving towards becoming you or the other person will become disillusioned with the top card in the stack. The objects serve as a scene prompt. So like when they say the person who says remember when, they pick an object and they use that object to sort of, so like if it's like a plate, it might be a dinner scene or a meal at a restaurant or a first date at a restaurant or something. And at the end of the scene, you say, I used to think, and you read what's on the card, the thing about the relationship. So it could be, I used to think that you had the most hauntingly beautiful eyes of all time. Whatever. Anyway, you break the object. So over the course of play, you physically break the 10 objects in front of you. That's the more dramatic way to play. The other way to play, which I think is just as dramatic and I kind of like just as much, but it's an alternative to if you don't want to physically break 10 objects or have 10 objects you can be parted with, because you are going to break them, is you have 10 popsicle sticks and you write an object on each one and you snap the popsicle stick at the end of every scene.
You got to break stuff.
Yeah, so you're always breaking something. Yeah, and then so you play out basically 3 acts of 3 scenes, and then the 10th scene is always the breakup, and you have your breakup conversation. There's some other elements to it too, but yeah, it's when we first played this game, when I first started writing it, it was very different. It started as kind of a 10 candles hack, and you had 10. And so, have you played 10 candles?
No, but I'm aware of the concept. So like. It makes well, first of all, it made sense before, but it makes a lot more sense in light of being a 10 candles hack. Yeah,
so it's the idea of being tragic, and knowing you're going to die at the end with 10 candles. But we started, instead of 10 objects, it originally had 10 candles, and you burned an index card and you put out the candle, and then you ended the game in the dark. But I figured out the breaking things. It just sort of came to me that was what the game was meant to be, because the idea of it like literally being the name was already broken before that, and now it just came to me. I was like, oh no, you need to break stuff along the way.
Wonderful.
For this game. But for finding playtesters, though, you have to like ask people to break 10 objects.
Yeah.
Hence where the popsicle sticks thing came from, like this idea of like as an alternative that works really, really well. Like I really like the idea of the popsicle sticks, and it is still very visceral. You still snap it. It also gives you a lot of freedom because you can write anything on there. You could write like grandfather's pocket watch on a you might not be able to bring and break an actual grandfather's pocket watch.
Right.
And then one of my readers suggested something I thought was clever, which is like to suggest to players that if you're going to play the game, you go shopping together at like a thrift store and you buy the 10 objects. So you go to like a thrift store, and it doesn't break the bank, right? Because you might be able to get stuff pretty cheap that you don't mind breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
So
I like that a lot.
Yeah, go together to a thrift store or a yard sale or something and buy 10 objects.
I just realized that I haven't told audience what my cursed engagement tweet was.
Yeah, please do.
So I should probably do that. Every so often, because I'm promoting a Kickstarter right now, I make transparent engagement tweets that are just meant to get people to ratchet up the numbies, because I'm deeply, deeply cynical. You might be thinking, you don't seem like a cynical person, Kat. You seem like a starry-eyed optimist. And that's what I want you to think. But so I made this tweet that was just like, what's the fucked up thing in your life that led to your most recent project? And that was how I led into talking about the dread instilled in me by being raised Catholic, and how that influenced Blazing Him. And that was when Ben posted about Broken, which sounds even better now that I've actually heard the details. It sounded cool in the thread too.
I think all I said in the thread was like, I wrote Broken because I went through a divorce.
That's all you said, yeah. But I think you mentioned that it was specifically a game about a relationship that inevitably comes to an end.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really excellent. And so many game designers came out of the woodwork to be like, yeah, this is my game about being trans and being exiled. This is This is my game about how I have a deep anxiety about people visiting. This is my game about what the pandemic did to me. Like, people really came out with these very personal stories that have impacted games that don't seem like they're that haunted. And I think it just goes to show that anybody who's making art is haunted a little bit. And even if the art itself isn't haunted, everything that a person experiences is part of their art. It's part of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to learn a lot about, like, God, so many trans people love games about werewolves.
Yeah.
They love them.
Yeah.
And I said it in the thread, and I'll say it on mic, like, the best transformation stories come from people who know what it's like to transform. They're best werewolf games.
Or like I'm thinking about Turn also. The Bo Jagger game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
came up in the thread.
Yeah, did it? That's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. And I was just thinking about how 2 weeks ago on this show, I had Avraham Yosef Baez on my show 2 weeks ago. And I had picked a game of his to like inspire the cocktail recipe. And I just picked it because it had a cool name. It was like, Mom, Dad, I summoned a demon and now I'm getting married. And now we're getting married is the game, right? And so, you know, it's like you summon a demon and now you're marrying the demon, and you play, one of you is the parents and one of you is the person who's getting married. And Avraham gave me a copy of the game when he was at PAX Unplugged also. So now I have it. And it's really, it's really cool. But what I didn't know, and then he told us on the show, was that game is actually about how he converted to, like, he discovered his Jewishness, like rediscovered his family history, became Hasidic, and got married through a matchmaker service, right? After like one conversation with his spouse. And he had to break that news to his parents. And so, Mom, Dad, I summoned a demon and now we're getting married was his way of processing that, real life event that happened. And I would never have guessed that, that, but like you said, it's about processing something from your real life that you take and create some thing that maybe no one will ever know is actually about whatever, pain you went through, thing you did, but it really is to you, that. Mine's much more surface. It's a breakup game, and it's like there's no metaphor there. I mean, it's just a breakup game.
Like one of my games, Raising Hell, which is based on Monster Rancher, and it's a solo game about raising a baby devil to be a champion. And a lot of the feelings that went into that game are the feelings of deep affection toward my niece and nephew, who I casually refer to as devils and demons. But like, I genuinely hope that they never lose what makes them devils. Like, I hope that my niece is always fierce and independent and strong-willed. And I hope that no one ever convinces her not to be a demon. Like, I want her to stay like this. And so this notion of just like raising little devils, it's completely non-judgmental. You're just competing in things like the Circle of Hell Invitational or whatever. But like, you love them and you're raising them with affection and you're raising them to be the best darn devils they can be. So it's like the things that matter to us in our lives come out in our work. And I think that that's really beautiful and important.
Yeah. And a lot of times it'll be in such a way as nobody ever knows but you, but that doesn't matter. It's just
doesn't
part of the creative process. It's really interesting to see this is such an interesting time to be into Ttrpgs because especially because of itch, but and I should say Kickstarter, but maybe not anymore, but because of Kickstarter, because of itch, the ability for people to create and just create and create and create and create. The amount of games, the amount of designers, the amount of voices being heard, it's just crazy.
It is.
It's crazy.
And it's like so many things. When I wrote the Carta SRD, I wrote it because I happened to write 2 solo games that has shared mechanics. And I was like, maybe someone else would like to write a game about this. And I made a game jam for it.
Okay.
And so many people wrote their first game for this game jam.
Wow.
So many people who had never written an RPG before read Carta and thought, I can do this, and gave it a shot. And did I literally weep? I might have. I'm going to be honest with you. It sounds like something I would do, actual crying. But it was so beautiful and touching to me that, like, we live in an age where somebody who wants to write an RPG can just make one, can just do it.
Yeah. I am grateful for SRDs for that reason. I think that they are liberating for new game designers. Like, I know, like, so I started writing Broken, right? And again, it started as a hack, right? And then Questlandia 1 was back on Kickstarter and was funded. And Hannah and Evan, as a part of that, explicitly said they wanted to make an SRD because they thought more people would make Questlandia hacks and never really did. So they're going to write an SRD as part of the republishing of Questlandia. Well, I took that as being like this I was like, I'm going to write a Questlandia hack. I have ideas for like 10 of them in my head. I will make one. And I did. And I stopped writing Broken, wrote all of what is now Bizlandia, which is my Questlandia hack where you play. Like, it's a comedy workplace game. But my point in saying that is that, SRDs like can be so like inviting to people who haven't designed a lot or they're new to designing like I am. And like let you design something that's in your head with someone else's system. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it more than that, but like I found it to be very freeing and inviting. So, as a newer designer. Blazing Him was the first game I ever wrote based on an SRD. Okay. It's based on the Lumen SRD. Right.
I had always just made my own games before.
Right.
I'm very much a do-it-yourself kind of person.
Sure.
But Blazing Him is so different from most of my games, and part of it is because Lumen is so different from my style. So most of my games are very gentle and handholdy and affectionate and sweet. And Blazing Him is not. It's aggressive and fast-paced and intense. And I think that that's a voice that I wouldn't have found in myself if I had continued only working with my own style and my own rules. And Lumen allowed me to find a voice for myself that was aggressive and fast-paced.
Interesting.
Like, even for an experienced game designer, you can learn a lot about the kind of stories you want to tell by using someone else's system.
Yeah, and write something that you may never have found had you not, you might never have found that game with that voice it's still yours, right? That's so interesting. But because of this inspiration from someone else and this other SRD, you're able to like design something you wouldn't have maybe otherwise.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
My mechanics tend toward being very gentle and very soft, and I don't think I would have written something like Lumen. I don't think I could have. I adore Lumen. It's not something I would write.
Yeah.
And so Blazing Him is Spencer's system viewed through my lens. And everything that lens entails. The Catholic trauma, the love of anime, the don't worry about the anime. I told you, audience, hey, I said not to worry about the anime. But it's and Lumen was built for video games. So it was built for fast-paced action. It's not like Heroic Chord is imagine, if you will, like Ryutama, but somehow softer.
Okay.
It's very cozy.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask you, when you say soft, that you tend to write mechanics that are soft. I was going to ask you if you could elaborate what you mean about, mean by that.
Well, how can I put this? The magic system in Heroic Chord involves pushing yourself outside your body and involves dissociating. So a lot of the mechanics in Heroic Chord are mental illness symptoms, but they're not viewed through a lens of being malignant or harmful or traumatic. It's just like, no, to cast spells, you dissociate. If you overuse your powers as an enduring crusader, you become depressed. That's okay. That's part of who you are. And so the idea is very much a game about people coming together to take care. Well, so is Blazing Him. I suppose Cat's going to be Cat. At the end of the day, most of my games are about people coming together to take care of each other in a hostile world. And so, but Heroic Chord is about a world where there are no more borders. There was an apocalypse a century ago. And so there aren't countries. There's just people doing their best. And demons and horrors. There are monsters all over the place. And so the characters are rangers who are kind of like part D&D ranger, part D&D cleric, part something else. Because they got their powers by going on a pilgrimage to visit a sacred landmark. And those landmarks are, in fact, gods that have granted them power. I really enjoy Heroic Chord. I love that game. But it's all about kind of like, you as you are can be a hero if what you want is to protect people. And if you are mentally ill or neurodivergent or disabled, you as you are can be a hero if what you want is to protect people. And I wanted to make it very clear that people can and should be able to see themselves, their whole selves in this game without judgment. And so, like, yeah, I dissociate a bunch, but so does my Heroic Chord character because they like to use magic. I would probably play an Enduring Crusader because they tend to get depressed. And so do I sometimes. That's okay.
Yeah.
And so to go from that to being like, no, you don't understand. God's trying to kill you. He's sending all the angels. It's like
Yeah.
very different pace.
Yeah. We got a question from our audience from Origin Man 11 saying, I wonder for either of you, what's the hardest part / biggest downside of using an SRD? So that's a great question.
That's not an easy question. I think for me, it's difficult because I have always built things from scratch. When I was part of my game design team back in college, when we were working on our universal system, I was the one who was like, no, you're just doing this because D&D did it. We don't have to. So I was always the one who was like, let's do it our way. Let's do it. Let's be unique. Let's do what we came here to do. And so when I first sat down to use an SRD, it went against everything I believed. Like, it was like, I've always believed in doing things yourself. And that's often silly. But the other thing is that, like, an SRD is not perfect and it's not complete. You can make a game just by reskinning an SRD, but in order to make a good game, to make a game that really speaks to who you are as a designer, you're still going to have to pop open the hood and tinker with it. And if you're not willing to engage with an SRD on that level, you're going to feel limited and constrained. And it's only if you've got the courage to really get in there that you find something that, like, really sings.
Yeah. I would say I found, like, myself always being like, oh, is this just too much like Questlandia? Like, is this is this too much like the original? Is it unique enough to be, what I mean? And I kept finding myself asking myself that question over and over and over again and, like, doubting it. It's also really hard because, like, so the other thing about that, I guess, is that that's hard to know. It's hard, you're too close to the thing. Like, I feel like I was so close to it that I couldn't tell. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, I don't even know, like, the answer. Like, is it too much? I don't know. Like, and that's something through, well, now I have play tested that game a couple of times, and it plays in its own unique way. And I think that's really, so finding that out, like, through play, like, what does this actually play like? That's when I kind of answered that for me. Like, no, this game is a workplace comedy game. It's funny. People, when they play it, laugh a ton, and it's all, like, it plays very differently than, say, like, Questlandia plays, like, completely differently. And that's where I knew, okay, it worked on the SRD level, and it's unique. It's different. It's not too similar. So that, yeah, that would be my answer to it. I love the idea of doing it, and it's funny because actually the SRD is actually doesn't exist yet for Questlandia anyway, but it was like we were invited to do it while they write the SRD. Yeah, right, exactly. And but I need to. I can't wait for the actual words of the SRD basically, so I can know what the constraints are or aren't for. But anyway, that's all. Yeah. But that's a good question. Yeah. That was a good question. Thank you for that question, Origin Man 11. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
So what else? So we've already linked the stuff. I'll put the links in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
People should go and back the Kickstarter or fund on itch. Like, give your spiel one more time. Give your pitch one more time, if you would.
Okay. So, one more time for the people in the back.
Yes.
So, Roar to Heaven is an actual play podcast set in my game, Blazing Hymn. It is about a future in which angels have come from heaven to massacre humanity and the music-powered battlesuits that are our only hope. We have got an elite team of forever GMs who are ready to bring this story to life in an actual play podcast like you've never heard before. You can back it on Kickstarter or on itch.io if you don't want to touch Kickstarter anymore. Either way, you can get access to amazing goodies like the game we're playing. Blazing Hymn is complete. I can send you a manual. I have the manual right here. I can send it to you. We just finished an expansion called Ashes to Ashes about the ways in which civilians respond to this threat. That's on the itch.io. It's also a Kickstarter backer reward. And even though most of the named NPC incentives are gone, you can still name our commander.
Oh, cool.
So,
what would you have to do to name the commander?
Give us $250.
There you go.
If you give us $250, you get to choose the name of our commander within Raisin. So you can't name it. Can you name it Bodie McBoatface? That's my question. Do you know about? Here's the problem. The gremlin in me wants to say yes. The serious podcaster in me is like, no, but the gremlin is like, yeah.
See, because you can't invite the internet. You can't invite the internet to name something and then get mad when they say Bodie McBoatface.
So we have a problem because of these incentives right now. Because the $500 tier was called Seraph, and it is for naming an NPC that I have not told the players about. Here's the problem. It was snapped up by mine and Dylan's mutual friend, Bill.
Okay.
Who we love. Thank you, Bill. We do love you. But Bill has a very unique style.
Okay.
And there's no name Bill can pick that Dylan won't be able to smell a mile away.
Okay.
So the second I introduce this NPC, Dylan's going to be like, this is the one that Bill named. This is someone important. And it's like, yeah. I know they will be able to smell it. And I'm like, can you come up with something that isn't very Bill? Please. He can't and he won't. But I don't know why I'm asking.
Cool.
I love him to bits. I would never ask him to change except this one time, and he won't.
There you go. Cool. Well, thank you for giving the pitch again, in case folks missed at the beginning, and the links in the chat. It'll be in the show notes. So if you're watching us later on YouTube or whatever, after the fact, that it'll be, or on allportsopen.com, it'll be in the show notes for it. So people can find the link there, and you have 15 days. Go back it. That's my pitch. Go back it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it. Oh, and your website is Peach Garden Games. There's a website. .com. Okay, I wanted to make sure I was getting it right. I added up on a tab. So
yeah, Bruce.
Cool. Awesome.
And that's where you can find Sort of Symphonies. You can find my games there, and you can find more information about Roar to Heaven. Awesome.
All right, I am going to ask Kat to hang out here in my digital green room, aka Zoom, and so going to switch back to just me here. Bye, Kat. Now it's just me. Okay, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks again to Kat for taking the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it. We weren't gonna do a December 20th episode. I was gonna take tonight off from the show, and I didn't. And I'm very, very glad it worked out the timing wise to get Kat to come on the show. So make sure you go to the itch.io or the Kickstarter and throw your support there. So speaking of support. one way you can support this show is by hitting the follow button on if you're watching this on Twitch, or subscribing if this is on YouTube. A new fun way to watch all of our live content at All Ports Open is to go to allportsopen.com/live, where you can see our shows and you can see the cast. And like if you're watching this right now on allportsopen.com/live, you can see Kat's picture and links to website and to you can just go right to peachgardengames.com that way by clicking on the website button there at the bottom. So it's a cool, fun way to watch our stuff. So yes, what else did I plan to say here at the end in my notes? This episode will be on our YouTube afterward. If you only caught part of it, you'll be able to watch the whole thing there basically immediately as soon as the show's over. Huge thanks to Joshua Wise, my Apon co-founder, for the artwork on my stream, for everything he does to make our network work, like that nice allportsopen.com/live page he created. He does all of the work for our website himself, and it's amazing. So huge thanks to him. Huge thanks to Dr. Octorok, my friend, for the use of his music on the show. That you hear at the beginning and the end of the show. I am that gamer priest Ben. Oh, there will be no episode next Monday for Christmas. So come back, same bat time, same bat channel on January 3rd, when game designer Adam Bell is joining me. We're going to be talking about his next crowdfunding game, Legend Has It, which is coming in January. So very exciting. So what does that mean? It means I won't see you again until 2022, folks. So enjoy the holiest and happiest of hours. If you celebrate it, Merry Christmas, Happy Yule to you. If you're out there, you celebrate that, and have a wonderful New Year. And I will see you all in 2022. Have a great night.
Calling all citizens of Halcyon City. The newest generation of heroes are now painting the pages of Delinquent Comics, a Masks new generation actual play podcast. Complete back issues are available now on allportsopen.com, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are found. You can help join the fight and hear the newest releases early by becoming a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/allportsopen. New bi-weekly episodes become available to all citizens on May 24th, featuring the newest arc, the Sunset Island Saga.